Welcome back, this is Tucker. Let's talk weather. With the Omega block over, our weather is becoming much more active. The temperature swings and storms ahead this week. But it's not just the mainland, the tropics are waking up too. We'll talk about any potential threats over the next couple of weeks. Welcome back in, guys. Been a week since I made a video, but the weather's been really quiet, so I've been a little bored. Okay, not actually. I got a full-time job, work on TV here in Boston, but you know what's been interesting, even with the quiet weather, is the fall foliage, because when is it not? Okay, I guess if you live in the South, maybe it's not that interesting, but I've never lived there, so I don't know. Do you guys get excited about that? Usually I end my forecast with this, but because it's a bigger story, obviously, the leaves are beginning to change colors, I thought we'd start with where some of the foliage is really beginning to pop. And we're going to start out here in the Rockies. You can see we actually have some areas reaching peak foliage in the highest elevations, but definitely high colors showing up in those higher elevations out there too. We can take a look at the Northwest. Again, it's all elevation based right now, but colors certainly showing up. But the farther we move into the central part of the country and northeast central areas, we're beginning to see some moderate color, and that is without elevation, and certainly colors showing up through some of the northernmost areas, getting into cities like Minneapolis, and getting closer to Green Bay. And in the Northeast, still mainly elevation based, but the first colors showing up, and certainly a lot more color to emerge from here. And this week, with temperatures shifting a lot, we're going to see some big changes. Current forecast calls for, again, the peak of most of our foliage to be mid-October, and you can kind of see that the darker green color indicating where it is going to be peaking mid-October. But let's talk about some of the factors that may drive some early popping of colors. And we're going to get into that forecast on the tropics here coming up too. As many of you know, if you watch, I like to teach the weather as we talk about the forecast instead of just throwing numbers at you. And what we're going to start with here is what we're looking at in the big picture. This really drives our weather. We previously had this Omega block in place, that ridge right in the middle with some storms. Kind of looks like the Lululemon symbol, doesn't it? But this Omega block, which has largely kept our weather stagnant, is breaking down. And now as we move into a new regime, what we're seeing is still some blocking in Canada, but closer to us, we actually have a couple storm systems emerging. And anywhere you're seeing these little bubbles in the otherwise kind of orange and red background, those are storm systems that are basically cutting through the jet stream and sort of mucking up our weather a bit. It's getting more active, more or less. I'm going to keep moving this forward, and some of the things you're going to begin to notice are that while we still have ridging in the Northwest out here, we don't have so much of a solution here in the central U.S. And I believe that is because we're going to have some not powerful but persistent weaker storm systems passing through. We also got a system that'll be coming off the Pacific, and we continue to have a couple of systems that dip down towards the Northeast and keep temperatures cooler out there. So moving this forward further, this is getting into next week, so we're looking at the 22nd through 27th. The pattern I was talking about, it kind of remains persistent where that ridge breaks down. We have some storminess in the central part of the country and at least cooler weather in the Northeast, and perhaps a little something here or there that tries to get in to the West Coast. So now that you have the big picture in mind, let's break it down, make it more simple. I'll show you temperatures and storm chances coming up. Oh, and in the meantime, consider following if you haven't already. You're going to get good weather information here. So, yeah, think about doing that. All right, now to temperatures, and what you're seeing are the air masses out there close to the ground. They give us a good idea of how our weather is going to be relative to average. So what we look at here as we head into the end of the week and the weekend is basically where it's going to be hot for this time of year and cold. I was mentioning the Northeast. We still have, again, some of those cooler air masses dipping in. You can see that out there. This weekend going to be pretty normal across a lot of the country, but it is going to be hot if you're in the Northwest. So Northeast cold, Northwest warm, otherwise pretty average temperatures. And then next week, remember, we have kind of an unsettled weather pattern. So while we are looking at generally warmer than normal weather to start across the northern U.S. next week, it's not going to stay that way, because as we head into the middle of the week, we have a couple of those storms breaking in through that ridge. And even though you're seeing these colder than average temps in the central U.S., this is going to be moving because it's actually a storm system bringing that cooler weather. Otherwise, the Northwest will stay pretty hot over the next week, and the Northeast is really just going to go up and down. Next week starts off pretty warm again, but you'll see as these storm systems come through, they're going to bring some of these temporary changes in how it feels. Though generally next week will be a little warmer than average, as you can tell, with that bumpiness mainly in the central U.S. I'm taking you to Futurecast now, and what you're going to see is persistent rain chances here in the central U.S. So if you're really anywhere in the central, this next week, every single day could bring some rain, but you're going to notice they're going to be a bit more scattered, those rain chances. So let's push this forward here. I also mentioned there are going to be a couple rain chances in the northwest as we head into the weekend, and here in the southwest as we approach the weekend. And moving it ahead in time to the weekend, of course, you're going to see again those rain chances. That one persistent system that's been sitting here this week, it's going to take some time to get out. Could bring a strong storm, but generally speaking, it's just going to be some downpours mixed in here and there. The northeast is very, very nice. This is where high pressure you can see is dominating, so I'm not too worried about rain out there. That may be the one real dry area in the country. But here's one of your systems hitting the Pacific. That's going to be end of the weekend, early next week. And then our big player, as I move this forward into the start of next week, is going to be ahead in the central U.S. We talked about those cooler than average temperatures just a moment ago. And what you're going to begin to see here, this is now Monday heading into Tuesday, and really through Wednesday and Thursday as well, is our next system begin to emerge out here and across a lot of the plains in Midwest. There will be a pretty good amount of rain at times. And here's our system coming together and likely hanging around this part of the country, like I said, for at least a few days. Even the southeast will get in on some rain as this system just sort of meanders. We're talking about storm chances, but the severe risk will be low. So I'm not too concerned about severe weather, but there is a low chance at that to be aware of. Otherwise, we are going to be pretty just more active and off and on with rain across central parts of the country. Like I said, if you want it dry, go to the northeast, and the west actually looking pretty good too, with a little rain chance here or there over the next 5 to 7 days. Now let's talk tropics, and I continue to see people really trying to make this a big news story. Thing is, it's really not a huge deal right now, but there are still some things you should be aware of, so I'm going to keep it sweet, just give you what you need to know. Let's start with a look at Gabrielle, which is a tropical storm at this point. It's not a massive deal here, but we're going to take a look at its path, and unless you're in Bermuda, which really should be watching this closely because we have the potential for a hurricane to hit the islands, this is going to stay in the ocean. So what we're seeing is a lot of wind shear, making it hard for this storm to really maximize some of the warmer waters. And with that said, we're likely looking at a weak hurricane heading into Monday in Bermuda. That's about it for Gabrielle. There's not much more to say, as opposed to what some people might have you believing. We also got this guy out here. It's just coming off of Africa, 20% chance of development. This has some potential, so let's go to our ensembles and take a look at where this storm system may end up. So as we look at these ensembles, as we call them, each one of these red numbers, and you'll see them more clearly in a minute, they're all clumped up in the start of our forecast because they give us an idea of the range of outcomes where the center of each of these storm systems may be. They're clumped up in the beginning because, well, we know where the center is. Where we're looking at that system off the coast of Africa moving in, this was also previously forecasted to possibly develop by National Hurricane Center, but they've let it go because, well, you'll see it dies out pretty fast in the generally higher shear environment. There's also a lot of dust out there, which is not helping either. But what we have here is Gabrielle, and this is going to, again, move near Bermuda and out to sea. We talked about that. So we're looking at this guy here moving off of Africa, and it's going to take a few days for it to really get its act together. As those colors become brighter, that is the model generally signifying a stronger solution. And we're looking at Monday next week, the first chance it could become a tropical storm, but you'll also notice that a lot of those red numbers have dropped off. Once more, I believe this is, as the National Hurricane Center has outlined, a lower chance of development. But if it does manage to develop, we'll likely know by about Tuesday or Wednesday next week, which is what you're seeing right here. And there is some suggestion from some of our models that it manages to become a tropical storm, maybe a hurricane. But as you can tell here, it's already beginning to make a move out to sea. And with that said, this storm also does not look to be a huge deal for the U.S. Yes, there is one solution that takes a likely hurricane to the east, or to the west rather, but this is really a massive outlier. And as a whole, there is still not a lot going on in the tropics. So I don't expect we're going to be talking about any big hurricane headlines through the end of September at this point, but of course I'll keep an eye on this. And you want to check back here for real hurricane information and not some of the hype that I see everywhere on the internet. And with that, I'm going to wrap things up here. Got a fun little trip to Dallas this weekend. Can't wait for some of the heat. It'll be in the 90s. I'm in the Northeast. Yeah, the weather's been nice. It's felt like fall, but I like summer, not fall as much. So I'm excited for that. With that said, I'll have an update early next week, likely Monday. So check back for more details. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And I hope to see you right back here next time.